For nearly 2 decades, the Volkswagen Golf R has sat at the very top of the Volkswagen Golf hierarchy. Now for 2022, there's an all-new version of the Golf. It's now based, of course, off of the Mark 8 generation. And while we aren't getting the standard Golf here in the States, VW is bringing over the GTI and, of course, the highest performance spec Golf R. And as you can see, I'm out here in northern Michigan at a ice track testing out this completely redesigned model. And the big question I want to answer, if you guys are looking for the ultimate hot hatch, is this new Golf R worthy of that distinction? Stay tuned to find out. Now, as the ultimate version of the Golf family, you guys are probably wondering what's going on underneath the hood. Now, opening up the hood of this German spec model, I'm noticing a couple things. One, I'm surprised it's using a prop rod. Volkswagen typically has, a reputation for being a little bit more premium. So I'm wondering if the US spec versions are going to give us hood struts. Now, of course, underneath the hood, we have the highest output version of the 2-liter turbocharged corporate EA 888 turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It now makes 315 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. That's 400 Newton meters of torque. Those numbers represent a roughly 30 horsepower increase over the previous generation. It also gives the Golf R about 73 more horsepower versus a GTI. The GTI will be offering around 240 horsepower when it goes on sale later this year. The beauty about the Golf R, of course, is standard all-wheel drive. Their 4Motion all-wheel drive system, it's now, of course, in its next generation. And Volkswagen has added true torque vectoring, which I'll be talking about the driving impressions later on in a separate video. So be sure to come back and watch that when that video posts on March 15th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But this new torque vectoring all-wheel drive allows for a drift mode. So you can actually take this thing drifting. So if you guys are looking for a replacement for your old Focus RS, this very well may be the car. Now, of course, transmission choices here in America, Volkswagen is going to offer a 6-speed manual. That's right, you can get a 6-speed stick here in the States, which you can't get in Europe. This particular one here that I'm showing you, because it's a German spec car, has a 7-speed dual clutch transmission, which Volkswagen has, of course, beefed up this year to handle the extra power. This new generation Golf R is slightly heavier for this European spec car. It weighs in at around 3,400 pounds, around 100 pounds heavier. Despite that, the additional horsepower means Volkswagen says this performance model will get to 60 in about 4.7 seconds, and it should reach a top speed around 155 miles an hour. I don't have final fuel economy figures yet. Whenever I get my hands on a US spec car, I'll be sure to share that, of course, at a later date. Now, let me shut the hood here and show you guys the rest of the styling, because this is my first time seeing the 8th generation Golf in person. Now, of course, for the R version, we have the unique specific Golf R design themes here. The headlights, as you can see, they're part of the new Mark 8 generation. They are a full LED design. You have LED low and high beams. This particular European spec model has automatic high beams with swiveling adaptive headlights. The grille actually has a new LED light here that kind of goes into the Volkswagen emblem. The emblem doesn't light up, but at night, this just looks very beautiful. It has a very distinctive look with the blue accents, of course. The lower front splitter of this vehicle has been enlarged. There's a lot of functional air vents here, a lot of functional vents here. No actual fog lights. It looks like Volkswagen has gotten rid of that, but they may actually put an all-weather light that's actually built into the headlight module. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of the design. It's still very understated. There's a very small R badge over here to let people know from the front end that you've got the hottest version of the Golf. And remember, this vehicle is going to compete, of course, with cars like the Honda Civic Type R, the Subaru STI, and if we still had the Focus RS here in the States, that's what it would compete with. You can also try to compare it to something like a Veloster N, which is technically a class below. Now, looking at the side profile, this is still based off of the MQB architecture, although VW says they've made a couple of enhancements to make the structure a little bit more stiff. It's still one of the smaller vehicles in the segment. At 168.9 inches long, VW only made it around 0.5 inches longer. Its wheelbase stays the same at around 103.5 inches long. So it's a little bit on the smaller end, which some of you may like that because a Honda Civic Type R is roughly 10 inches longer. It can feel like a minivan at times because of how wide and how big it is. Now, I want to show you guys the new wheels. These are the standard wheels that you get on the Golf R. They're a 19-inch wheel. They're wrapped in 235 with tires. This one here, of course, Volkswagen has spec'd it with a Pirelli winter tire because we're out here on this test track. And you can see the brakes have been incredibly upgraded. You have larger rotors. They're cross-drilled, 4-piston Brembo-style calipers with the signature R logo, which are painted blue. It's all very nice. The Golf R in general, VW says they've lowered the suspension by about 0.6 inches compared to the standard GTI. Now, the one thing you're probably noticing, the Golf R has now come with this sunroof. It's not a full pano roof, but you can see here VW was listening to the cries from America because you couldn't ever get a sunroof on the Golf R in the past. I also really love it in this blue color. This is the signature blue that you get with the Golf R. Volkswagen also had a white one to show us here, but out in these conditions, the blue just kind of stood out. You're also probably noticing this is supposed to be a hot hatch. Check out this wing back here. It's not as big as the wing that you get on like a Civic Type R or the Subaru STI, but this is very similar to what you find in the Hyundai Veloster end. You have these new LED taillights, which are full LEDs. They have the sequential turn signals, which is nice, of course. Very small, subtle R badge. And then check out this exhaust. Quad outlet exhaust system, which looks fantastic. This one here has a sport exhaust system for 3,800 euros. Volkswagen has not confirmed that it's coming to America. They may not bring it to America because of how expensive it is, but let's fire it up. You guys can hear how it sounds. Oh, that's music to my ears. 3,800 euros? Volkswagen, please bring it to America. That was loud. That scared me the first time. So finally, the Golf R has a sound to match the engine performance and just the look of this car, but it's not overly obnoxious. Now let's open up the rear hatch of this vehicle. Now I don't have final cargo figures yet. However, it looks pretty similar to the previous generation, which offered around 23 cubic feet of space. If you fold down the second row, the old one offered around 52 cubic feet of space. So that's about on par with what you get from a Honda Civic Type R. It's a very usable space. No power liftgate, of course, is available, which you typically don't find in the hot hatch segment. So now that we've talked about the exterior of the new Golf R, let me hop into the interior and show you guys what this European spec model is. Now, Volkswagen wanted me to point out the one that you're seeing is pretty much on par with what the US spec car is going to get, including these seats. These are the full leather bucket seats. The European spec cars will kind of get like a cloth insert, but it's a combination. Not in America, we only get the full leather buckets, which I find the seats to be really nice looking and comfortable. Now looking at the interior at a glance, you can see this new Golf R definitely has a much higher tech feel, right down to especially the ambient lighting, which is interchangeable, and these massive screens. There's a 12-inch screen here and a 10-inch display there for their latest infotainment system. When I come and shut the door here, the door has a very solid sounding thunk, which is definitely nice. It adds to that impression of quality. Now here's the key fob for the vehicle. You can see this is the newer Volkswagen key. There's even a cool little R logo on it. It's their intelligent access key, which is standard on the vehicle. The start stop button is now a square. It's right in front of the shifter. And you can see when the vehicle starts up, this model here comes standard with adaptive headlights, which is going to be included on the US models. And you can see this is the digital cockpit display. It's a 12-inch display, which is pretty similar to the previous generation, but you can see the graphics have been improved. This display is slightly interchangeable and customizable. It changes based on the drive modes and just by pushing this view button. You also have these touch-sensitive buttons here on the steering wheel, which is really nice. It is, of course, going to make this car feel a lot more, high-tech in this vehicle. And there's also a new steering wheel. You can see blue stitching, flat bottom, feels really good. Massive paddle shifters, which are a little bit larger than what you get in the GTI. So again, all very nice to make the Golf R feel a little bit more premium. The steering wheel, you can see it is a heated steering wheel, which is nice, especially in these winter conditions. And if you want, there's an R button here, which will basically put you in all the different drive modes. It gives you quick access to the race mode. There's a drift mode, of course. There's a special mode, which is kind of like the Nurburgring mode, which Volkswagen says they weren't actually allowed to use that. I'll talk about that later on in the video. Now let's look at the interior materials in here. Let me take it out of R mode because the exhaust, as you guys heard, got a little bit loud there. Go back into comfort. In terms of the dashboard, you have this really nice soft touch injection molded plastic, which is a very nice material. You have this faux carbon fiber trim. You have silver painted plastic, which is all really nice. The door panels also are soft touch here with some aluminum accented door handles. You have power window controls, which are one touch for all four and have a really nice tactile, high quality feel, which is typical VW. Down here you can see your air vents. You have a wireless phone charging pad, and then the ambient lighting here is all interchangeable, and this is again controlling the 7-speed dual clutch, or you can take your pick between a manual transmission. Looking over at the infotainment system, you can see wireless Apple CarPlay is included, or you can also just plug it in via 2 USB-C ports. This screen looks nice. It's pretty similar to the last ID4 that I drove, although not quite as large. There's a dedicated home button there. You can go to background here. You can change, your different ambient lighting colors. Like I said, the car comes with factory GPS, which VW has been steadily improving over the years. It is relatively quick, but I do miss the larger 12-inch display that you get in the ID4, but this is a huge improvement over the 8-inch display that you got in the previous generation model. Not a fan of the fake carbon fiber. I wish that it had a texturized feel. It's just very smooth, or maybe some aluminum trim would have been nice. I also really like the wireless phone charger, how it's kind of underneath this little lid, which makes it a little bit, easier so your phone doesn't get, thrown around, or it's a little bit better hidden. When you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's the backup camera. It comes with parking sensors, but no top-down 360 camera. VW doesn't offer that. You don't really need it in a vehicle that's this small. The Harman Kardon stereo in my tester also sounds pretty good. It's what you're gonna get in the US spec cars, and you also get that standard head-up display, which is again going to make the interior feel really, really nice. Now, let's talk about the seats. These are the upgraded leather seats. They adjust in four different ways manually on the passenger side. I have an 8-way power on the driver's side. They are heated seats, but not cooled. You also get that heated wheel. And I have 2-person memory on the driver's side, which is nice. So again, premium feel. I love the carbon fiber look on the seats with the texture, the blue stitching, the R logo. The seats themselves are comfortable, supportive. They hold you in place very nicely. The door panels even have that nice fabric material on the inner liner of the pocket, which helps to stop the rattling when you have stuff in there. And then you can see in here, nice center console storage area. This right here even slides and adjusts. You have 2 cup holders over here, which allow you to kind of adjust that a little bit. You have a 12-volt electronic parking brake and whatnot. And then when you look at the glove compartment here, you can see it's a pretty good size. It's damped, but it's not lined with felt. Now, of course, the big news this year is this sunroof. Now, it's kind of a pano roof, but it doesn't actually take up the entire area. It doesn't go to the back, but you can see there is a manual shade here. There's some LED lighting. That sunroof is standard along with the heads-up display and everything that you're seeing here. So VW really pulled out all the stops for this interior. I think they did a great job with making this feel a lot nicer. You can see if you want to change your ambient lighting, you can go here and you can change it there. This is just like the ID4, or if I change that, it changes this entire screen to red and those gauges to red. So really, really nice. You don't find this in this segment. So if you're looking for the most premium interior, the new Golf R definitely delivers on that. Now, the new Golf R continues to only be offered as a 4-door hatch, which is going to make this vehicle an easier sell to your spouse. Now, obviously, the space back here is not plentiful. I mean, if you guys are looking at a compact SUV, that's going to offer more room. And VW doesn't have final legroom figures yet. The previous generation offered around 36 inches of legroom. That's about on par with something like a Honda Civic Type R. Getting back here at 5'7", this is a pretty comfortable place for me. You can see there's plenty of foot space. There is a fairly large hump here for the all-wheel drive system. You have, looks like rear separate climate controls. You have rear seat air vents. You have 2 map pockets. And just like in the ID4, VW has added these nifty little cell phone pockets here. So you can kind of take your phone and just plop it right into that pocket there. And there's actually 2 of them, which is nice. Over here, you can see there's an armrest that folds down, gives you 2 cup holders. And then, surprisingly, the backseat materials back here are hard touch plastic, which is a little disappointing, but there is some beautiful ambient lighting back here, which makes the cabin feel a lot more premium. Now, as the ultimate version of the Golf R, this new version obviously has some pretty big shoes to fill. And after spending the day driving this vehicle, I can't talk about how it drives just yet, but I want to briefly touch base on my thoughts of the Golf R. If you guys want to see my full driving impressions, be sure to come back on March 15th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
I'll stay out of your way, don't worry. All right, when you're ready.
How was it? More fun than your Type R?
Nope. Sometimes. Good job, Sophian. You're just digging a rut.
What do you have to say for yourself?
I guess it's not my fault. There's a lot of snow.
It's not your fault.
There's a lot of snow. If this was the all-wheel drive one, we'd be good. Now, obviously, I think Volkswagen has knocked it out of the park with the looks. I love the wheels, I love the proportions, I love the sunroof, I love the new front end. The new Mark 8 generation Golf GTI and of course the Golf R are going to be some pretty sought after vehicles for enthusiasts. They've always been really popular. In fact, VW says the fact that Americans love manual transmissions so much is the reason why they are bringing the manual transmission of this vehicle to North America for now. VW actually mentioned that 40% of GTI and Golf R owners actually end up purchasing the manual. 40% in a world full of self-driving and electrification. That is a pretty healthy number. So enthusiasts out there, your cries for a manual have been answered, as there's a manual and of course this DSG version. Now I do want to mention that the manual does actually come with slightly reduced torque. I mentioned earlier 310 pound-feet for this dual clutch. The manual actually only has around 280, which is still plentiful, which is why the dual clutch is going to be quicker. VW says 4.7 seconds for this one, probably closer to 5 with the manual. I love the rear wing that they added, which is going to be standard. The sunroof is standard. Now the exhaust system on this car, you guys heard the noise this car makes. I really hope VW finds a way to bring the exhaust system here, because at 3,800 euros in other markets, it is a very expensive proposition. You're probably going to be spending around 5,000 for the exhaust when you convert it over to North American dollars. But I really hope that VW finds a way to make it happen, because it is an exhaust system that is probably going to be worth the price, considering the new noise of this thing. It just reminds you constantly this is now sitting at the very high end of the Golf family. Now, speaking of which, I want to speculate a little about pricing, because the old one started around $40,000 plus destination. I'm going to estimate this one that we're sitting here will probably convert over to be around $46,000, $47,000. That does make the Golf R pretty expensive, but as you guys saw with that gorgeous interior, with the beautiful styling, that torque vectoring all-wheel drive system, it's essentially everything that I loved about the Ford Focus RS. However, it's wrapped in a much more mature package. It has a much nicer interior that is far more comfortable to sit in. And I'm just a big fan of the look. So when I finally get my hands on to drive the North American version, I'm very much looking forward to seeing if this truly is the new hot hatch king in a segment that has been dominated by the Honda Civic Type R for the last 4 years. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the exterior, the interior of the new 2022 Volkswagen Golf R. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.